In today's video, I wanted to begin my journey through the College of Winterhold story featured in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. This is a questline I've actually never done before. Once upon a time, I might have started the first quest, but I'm certain I've never made it beyond that. I guess in true Nordic fashion, I've always been more interested in the, shall we say, corporeal realm. Smithing, the companions, the civil war, etc. I've made battle mages who were competent in destruction and restoration, but never a character whose sole focus is the arcane. So, for this journey, I'm going to play as a mage, go through each important quest, listen to the dialogue, and discuss the story. First, let's go over a small history lesson, just to get an introduction. The college is located in the city of Winterhold, within the province of Skyrim. It's a one-off, and there aren't any other institutions tied to it. It's said to have been established sometime in the late First Era, but the earliest records date back to the Second. The college works similarly to the Empire's former Mages Guild. Scholars and researchers study there in hopes of making breakthroughs in history, alchemy, ancient relics, and of course, the arcane arts. It has a hierarchy system with wizards and witches being of different ranks. New students with a knack for spellcasting can enlist rather easily. The only thing is that they have to demonstrate some form of magical competence. Of course, something that gets brought up often is the fact that there's a hub for magic in a city full of Nords. Most Nords look down on magic and outright despise it. This is due to a myriad of reasons, but mostly because in the past, the enemies of the Nords have been magic users. Combine that with the destruction of Winterhold, and the northern people are especially suspicious of the college. For now, I'll leave the setup there as more details come to light as the story goes on. The adventure begins rather simply. Odds are, someone in Skyrim will have told you to visit the college. I know that from my experience, Farengar's Secret Fire was the first NPC to direct me there. Furthermore, if you've gone through the main questline, your journey would have already brought you to the college. That's where the Dragonborn gets sent in order to learn more about the Elder Scrolls. However, choosing to approach this as a fresh blood, I traveled to Winterhold and laid eyes on the magnificent college. The building is massive and masterfully crafted. It's only connected to the mainland via bridge. It honestly looks like it should have came crashing down. Its little island seems rather unstable and vulnerable to the sea, but perhaps that's the work of magic or just pure luck. Ready to further my studies as a mage, I started to walk along the bridge. However, I was quickly stopped and the tests began sooner than expected.
Cross the bridge at your own peril. The way is dangerous and the gate will not open. You shall not gain entry. Oh, forgive me. Most who arrive here do so because they have heard of the college beforehand. This is the College of Winterhold, a safe haven for mages in Skyrim, a place of wisdom and arcane knowledge. Perhaps, but what is it you expect to find within? I see. That power certainly exists, I assure you. Wield it faithfully, and few can withstand you. It would seem that the college has what you seek. The question now is, what can you offer the college? Not just anyone is allowed inside. Those wishing to enter must show some degree of skill with magic. A small test, if you will. Excellent. The Flame Atronach is a vital companion for anyone relying on conjuration. Summoning one here would certainly show your skill. No? Well, if you think you're capable of it, then I'd be happy to provide it to you for a mere 30 gold. Or you can try your luck with one of the court wizards around Skyrim. They also sell spells. Here you are. Now I'm anxious to see you cast it.
This is what initiates the first quest for the faction, proving that I have some competence with magic. Well, it was certainly a decent test, as 1, I got to add a new spell to my arsenal, and 2, I wasn't even sure if my character could cast the spell. He's yet to use conjuration, and summoning a Flame Atronach is apprentice level. Well, luckily for me, the spell worked. It sapped up most of my magicka, something I'd fix later, but for now, I passed the test.
Well done indeed. I think you'll be a superb addition to the college. Welcome, apprentice. I'll lead you across the bridge. Once you're inside, you'll want to speak with Mirabelle Irvine, our master wizard. Please, follow me.
That Flame Atronach would come to be my savior many times over for this questline, so it's best 30 gold I've ever spent. As Faralda escorts me across the bridge, She stops at certain points and casts a spell. This spell ends up filling these wells with a mystical blue light. Perhaps it serves as a ward to fend off those aforementioned dangers, or maybe it just literally lights the bridge up, making it easier to see along the way. Feralda is the college's gatekeeper, so she's probably well versed with the bridge's flaws and hazards. Either way, when Feralda activates the third and final well, she heads back to her post and leaves me to find Mirabelle. Entering the courtyard, it didn't take me long to find Irvine. However, she was arguing with someone, and that someone happened to be a member of the Thalmor.
I've made myself rather clear.
Yes, of course. I'm simply trying to understand the reasoning behind the decision.
You may be used to the Empire bowing to your every whim, but I'm afraid you'll find the Thalmor received no such treatment here. You are a guest of the college, here at the pleasure of the Archmage. I hope you appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, of course. The Archmage has my thanks.
Very good. Then we're done here.
Whatever that was, it sounded like typical Thalmor entitlement. It's always satisfying to see someone stand up to those elves.
Welcome to the college. Another new student. I'm surprised at how many of you there are lately. Well, first you'll need these. While you're not required to wear them, you may find them more to your liking than your current clothes. I'll give you a brief tour, and then we'll get you to your first class. Are you ready to begin? Wonderful. Please follow me, and don't wander off.
Mirabelle hands me some mage's garb, and then our little tour begins. So far, the college looks astounding, and I've only been here for about 30 seconds. Irvine explains that the college has been a focal point of Skyrim for thousands of years. Right now, her and I are standing outside the Hall of the Elements. This is where the faction holds its lectures, meetings, and practice sessions. Above it is the Arcanium, aka the library, and beyond that is the Archmage's quarters. Since the Archmage is usually occupied with other matters, Irvine is the one who runs the day-to-day operations here, sort of like how Raminus Polis did for the Mages Guild in Oblivion. Mirabelle then discusses the college's current issues. The Nords have gotten a little rowdier and more outspoken towards the Institute. While she doesn't think it'll break out into violence, the college is doing its due diligence. This would explain Feralda's strict demeanor. Next on the tour is the Hall of Attainment. It's meant for housing new members. It allows mages to conduct research and practice smaller experiments. Irvine shows me to my quarters and asks that I be considerate of my fellow apprentices. Personally, I'm not seeing a whole lot of space for magical experiments here, so either I'm getting shafted or these people are brewing potions in bed. Taking a quick look at the mage's garb, Mirabelle gifted me a novice robe of destruction, a novice hood, and a pair of regular boots. The robe, a duplicate of the one I'm wearing, allows for magicka to regenerate 50% faster, and destruction spells cost 12% less to cast. The hood is simpler and increases my magicka by 30 points. It is an upgrade compared to what I currently have on. As for the boots, there's nothing special about them, but that's the whole point. They're a blank slate, so I can put whatever enchantment I'd like on them. Back to the tour, Mirabelle is waiting for me outside, and catching up with her, she explains the next steps. My first lesson at the college is going to come from someone named Tolfdir. He's apparently a very established wizard, and he has plenty of knowledge to share. Arriving back at the courtyard, Irvine sends me off to the Hall of the Elements. Tolfdir is already addressing the new apprentices, and Mirabelle's tour is pretty much at an end. I'll do some exploration later, but first, I was curious on what Tolfdir's lesson would be like. Heading into the main building and passing on through the gates, I could see several NPCs standing in the chamber. One of them was the Thalmor agent from earlier, but I don't think he had any involvement with the class. He was simply observing. Then there was a smaller group off to the side. Tolfdir was an older Nord, and it looked as though he had 3 initiates with him. My participation would make it a class of 4.
Welcome, welcome. We were just beginning. Please, stay and listen. So, as I was saying, the first thing to understand is that magic is, by its very nature, volatile and dangerous. Unless you can control it, it can and will destroy you.
Sir, I think we all understand that fairly well. We wouldn't be here if we couldn't control magic.
Of course, my dear, of course. You all certainly possess some inherent natural ability. That much is not being questioned. What I'm talking about is true control, mastery of magic. It takes years, if not decades, of practice and study.
Then what are we waiting for? Let's get started.
Please, please. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Eagerness must be tempered with caution, or else disaster is inevitable.
But we've only just arrived here. You've no idea what any of us are capable of. Why not give us a chance to show you what we can do?
You've been quiet so far. What do you think we should do?
While this seems like a big decision, in reality, either response leads to the same lesson.
Is that so?
See, he agrees with us too. Why don't you actually show us something?
All right, let's settle down. I suppose we can try something practical. In continuing with our theme of safety, we'll start with wards. Wards are protective spells that block magic. I'll teach you all a ward, and we'll see if you can successfully use it to block spells, all right? Would you mind helping me with a demonstration? Are you at all familiar with ward spells? That's all right. I can teach you a very basic ward, one that's enough for the purposes of this lesson. Now, if you'll just stand right over there, I'll cast a spell at you, and you block it with the ward. Here we go. Over there, please, just opposite me. Wouldn't want anyone else in the way.
Tolfdir ends up teaching me the restoration spell, Lesser Ward. It increases my armor by 40 points and negates up to 40 points of spell damage and effects. Equipping the spell and casting it, Tolfdir fires off a destruction spell and it practically bounces off my barrier.
Well, I think this is an excellent start. I'd like you all to continue practicing with wards, please. I think perhaps we're ready to begin exploring some of the various applications of magic throughout history. The college has undertaken a fascinating excavation in the ruins of Saarthal nearby. It's an excellent learning opportunity. I suggest we meet there in a few hours and see what awaits us inside. That's all for now. Thank you.
With that, thus ends the quest, First Lessons. Before leaving the college, I wanted to get to know some of the people in the faction. Tolfdir and Berlina Marian, one of the other apprentices, had already left for Saarthal. However, the other two initiates were still here. Onmund is the one who informed me of the Nordic opinion on the college and magic as a whole. He makes mention of the Oblivion Crisis, which was caused by magic users, as well as the Aldmeri Dominion, elves, and casters. He also calls attention to the college's survival during the Great Collapse, and how many believe it was their doing to begin with. Next is Jizargo the Khajiit. Jizargo is rather competitive, and aims to become an incredibly powerful mage. He even says that part of his plan is to swipe trinkets and small enchanted goods, things that no one will have noticed are missing. Probably not something you'd want to admit out loud. Up next, I spoke with an Altmer named Neria. All she could talk about was Feralda. Neria really doesn't like the Gatekeeper. While I didn't check if the feelings were mutual, Neria's rant made it seem that way. Cutting my meet and greet short, the final person I spoke with was Unkano, the Thalmor High Elf.
Another new apprentice, I see. Are you of the sort that believe you're here to change the world? Or are you only in it for yourself? I assure you that I shall be watching you, all of you, very closely. I am an advisor to the Archmage. The Thalmor wish to promote relations with your college. I am at the Archmage's disposal if he requires advice. Perhaps not as often as he should. In time, I believe he will be more trusting.
Unkano's position here is most certainly secretive. No one really trusts him, as was demonstrated by Irvine and now apparently the Archmage. More than likely, he was sent here by the Aldmeri Dominion to ensure the college's cooperation with the White Gold Concordat. His attendance probably wasn't requested, so I'm sure it makes everyone happy to see him constantly get turned away. Alright, switching gears. Before heading to Saarthal, I made some minor upgrades to my current loadout. I wasn't utilizing a lot of my enchantment slots, most notably no ring, no bracers, and no boots. At the time, I could only afford to buy 2 Grand Soul Gems, so I enhanced my overall magicka through some leather bracers and a silver garnet ring. Either way, the difference was impeccable. Now I could cast my destruction spells and not have to worry as much about my magicka draining so quickly. Ready to continue with the adventure, I popped open the map and looked for Saarthal. The ruin was directly southwest of Winterhold. Mounting my horse, I began the short ride over. To say it was uneventful wouldn't be true. Not only did I have to outrun saber cats, ice wraiths, and wolves, I also ran into an old orc. My fellow Orsimer was looking for a good death. He was apparently too old to be chieftain, too old to get married, and too old to continue with the adventure. He said he wouldn't move from that spot until he was granted an honorable death. Well, luckily for him, I was looking for someone to test out my new gear on. Accepting his request, the fight was over with quickly, but it was close. Magicka wasn't an issue. It was the close quarter combat. Every swing knocked my health down by a good chunk. Maybe that's the next thing I need to focus on, raising my health. In any case, the ruins of Saarthal were right behind the old orc. I could immediately see that the college had made its mark here. Rafters, construction, equipment, there was a lot going on. Out by the entrance, I spotted Tolfdir and Marian. At the moment, the other two initiates were nowhere to be found, but they'd soon catch up to us.
And here we all are. Shall we step inside? All right. Please stay close to me while we're inside. It should be safe, but it's always better to be cautious.
As the five of us head down into the dungeons, Tolfdir rants on about Saarthal's importance. This was one of the earliest Nordic settlements. Sailing from Atmora, the Nords built these ancient keeps and made it their home. It's where the Night of Tears took place, the surprise attack that was carried out by the Snow Elves on the Nords. It's what started Ysgrimor's 500 companions and the Nordic conquest of ridding Skyrim and Solstheim of the Falmer. As the history lesson winds down, Tolfdir mentions that we'll be looking into ancient magic in the prehistoric civilizations.
Well, are there any questions before we begin? We're particularly interested in the prevalence of magical seals placed on the tombs here. It's rather unlike anything we've encountered. Ah, yes. Well, why don't you see if you can assist Arniel Gain? He's one of our scholars, here working on cataloging our finds. I expect he'd appreciate some help in locating any additional magical artifacts here in the ruins. Any enchanted items will do. The usefulness of the enchantment is irrelevant. If you find anything, the class can look it over. Now let's see. What shall we have the rest of you do?
I briefly ran into Arniel during my tour with Mirabelle, but I didn't have the chance to talk with him much. Venturing further into Saarthal, I could really see just how much the college tore this place apart. Support beams, dig sites, extractions. It'd be surprising if there was much else to even look into. Not long into my search, I found Gain and spoke with him.
I'll be amazed if we find anything useful here. What? Ah, yes, you. I remember you. You're going to help? That's fine, just don't make a mess of my work. I've only looked through a portion of this section. You can look around in the chambers just north of here. Try and be careful, all right? We don't want to damage anything.
From Arniel's dialogue, it's obvious he doesn't think I'm going to be of any help. Even most of these aforementioned enchanted items won't be that interesting to him. There are 4 points of interest for this area. 3 of them are enchanted rings, and said enchantments are nothing more than health buffs. However, the 4th item is different. It's an ancient-looking amulet, and interacting with it, events are set in motion. The way back to Arniel is closed off by a trap. Tolfdir is on the other side, and he attempts to walk me through it.
What in the world was that racket? Is everything all right? How in the world did that happen? Really? Perhaps the amulet is important somehow. Is there some way you can use it?
The Saarthal amulet's enchantment is rather dull. Spells cost 3% less to cast, certainly nothing to clap about. However, simply equipping the piece is what brings out its magic.
Do you see that? Some kind of resonance. You and the wall. It must be connected to the amulet. I wonder, what effect might your spells have?
Throwing an ice bolt at the magical spot, it manages to smash through the wall, revealing a secret passageway.
Well, would you look at that? This appears to lead somewhere. Let's see where it goes.
From here, Tolfdir and I split off from the group. He's just as dumbfounded as I am. He's unsure why this place has been sealed off and assumes that it must have served some importance.
I'm not sure what to expect here. Please be on your guard.
Hold, mage, and listen well. Know that you have set in motion a chain of events that cannot be stopped. Judgment has not been passed, as you had no way of knowing. Judgment will be passed on your actions to come, and how you deal with the dangers ahead of you. This warning is passed to you because the Psijic Order believes in you. You, Mage, and you alone, have the potential to prevent disaster. Take great care, and know that the Order is watching.
I swear I felt something rather strange just then. What just happened? I'm afraid I didn't see anything. Can you tell me more about what you saw? The Psijic Order? Are you quite sure about that? That's very odd. And danger ahead? Why, that doesn't make any sense at all. The Psijics have no connection to these ruins, and no one's seen any of their order in a long time. Perhaps we should take a look inside these coffins. Now, please do be careful. Who knows what we're going to find?
Before continuing, I wanted to hear more about the Psijic Order, as I wasn't too familiar with them.
They were a group of mages with a history that predates the Empire. Very powerful, very secretive. No one's seen them in well over 100 years. They vanished, along with their sanctuary on the Isle of Artaeum. I have no idea what connection they'd have to this place. I have no idea, but it's fascinating. Assuming it's true, of course. The Isle of Artaeum disappeared over 100 years ago, and no one has seen them since. And yet now, suddenly, they've chosen to contact you. Why, it's intriguing. If nothing else, I'd take it as a compliment. The Psijics have only ever dealt with those they feel worthy.
As Tolfdir and I turn around, the action officially begins. Draugr bursts from their tombs and aggro onto us. One of their coffins reveals another passage that leads further into the dungeon. While Tolfdir gave a somewhat satisfactory answer to my questions, he's seemingly just as confused as I am. What are these events that the apparition spoke of, and what dangers could he be referring to? Well, while this probably isn't what he meant, there are a lot of Draugr in this dungeon. After that whole ordeal, Tolfdir and I take out a few more undead. Soon, we arrive in a room with a unique layout and intricate markings.
I've never seen anything like these Nordic ruins before. Why, just look at all these coffins. This bears closer inspection. I'd like to stay a while and examine this. You, however, should press on. See if you can find whatever this vision of yours mentioned. But if it is truly dangerous, be careful. Go on ahead. I'll be sure and catch up with you before long.
For now, the Nord and I go our separate ways. It's interesting to think about how the Dragonborn will have seen scenes like this dozens of times due to their own adventures and quests. Meanwhile, this is probably a first for most scholars, and even someone like Tolfdir might have only seen this a handful of times. In any case, pressing onwards, the Draugr threat didn't end there. If anything, it only ramped up. From here, the next portion of Saarthal works similarly to other ancient Nordic tombs. The undead Nords rise from their slumber and charge in for the attack. They range from mundane Draugr to restless and even white. I'm able to keep them at bay with my destruction magic, but again, when they close the distance and land a heavy attack, it wreaks havoc on my character. The loot in here is fairly standard for a burial site. Urns and chests with gold, gems, and trinkets, items that were meant to honor the dead. At one point in my journey, I hit my first ancient Nordic puzzle. This one was really simple though. There were 4 totems. Behind each totem was the correct symbol. I suppose the challenge was that the symbols were somewhat concealed behind the totems themselves, making them hard to see. Regardless, I got past the trial and landed on a real challenge. This next chamber was medium-sized and it only had one other NPC, a Draugr Scourge. The Scourge acted as my combat test, so to speak. It was tanky and powerful. It had the ability to use the Thuum, and it wielded an ancient Nord warhammer. Thankfully, this thing was incredibly slow, and I was able to anticipate pretty much every single swing. It never landed a hit, otherwise if it had, my character would have gotten crushed. After enlisting the help of my Atronach and continuing to press the attack, the Scourge was defeated. Continuing onward, I was treated to some loot and brought to the second puzzle. This one was a little more intricate, and therefore a little more fun. There were 4 totems again, but this time, the correct symbols were in plain sight. The catch though was that by moving certain totems, others would end up moving too. So, the upper left one would end up adjusting all 4. Meanwhile, the lower right one would only affect itself. Eventually, through some trial and error, I found the correct combination. Upper left gets adjusted first, and the second is the lower left. Then the third is the upper right, and the final one is the lower right. In the end, not overly complicated, but still it offered more of an experience than the last one. Only after getting past all of the hard work, Tolfdir decided to accompany me again. He came racing through the dungeon, and together we continued the expedition. However, our adventure would soon come to an end, as what we stumbled onto was the find of a sentry. The next chamber over contained something unlike either of us had ever seen before.
Well now, would you look at that? I never imagined we'd find something like this. Why is this buried so far within Saarthal?
As Tolfdir and I went to get a closer look, we triggered the final boss of Saarthal. Sitting in front of this magical orb was the Draugr named Uric Galderson. Uric stood up from his throne and aggroed onto us. Astoundingly, Uric was unaffected by our magic. Tolfdir and I both used fire spells on the Draugr, but its health wasn't going down. After a few more attempts, Tolfdir gets an idea. He runs over to the artifact, and I'm left to face off with Galderson alone. For the moment, Uric isn't doing much. He's just eyeing me down from the lower levels. As for Tolfdir, he resorts to shocking the orb, and believe it or not, his plan actually works. Uric becomes vulnerable, but only to certain spells. It's still unaffected by fire and frost, but shock damage does the trick. Now that I've found my stride, of course, Galderson presses in for the attack and charges at me. At this point, I'm juggling my magicka and keeping my distance from Uric. As the Draugr's health gets low, my shock spells stop working. I tried fire next, but no dice there. Then lastly, I went for frost, and to my delight, Uric's health started moving again. A couple of frost bolts later, and the named Draugr was put back down. As I turned my attention back toward the orb, its barrier was gone, and Tolfdir was examining it.
I have no idea. This is amazing. Absolutely amazing. The Archmage needs to be informed immediately. He needs to see this for himself. I don't dare leave this unattended. Can you return to the college and inform Savos Aran of this discovery? Please, hurry.
Whatever this thing is, it's magnificent. It's flowing with magicka, it's inscribed with ancient runes, and it appears to be incredibly powerful. Before leaving Saarthal, I had a quick look around the rest of the chamber. On the table where Uric was sitting at, I came across the staff of Uric Galderson. Then, on the Draugr's body, I found something called the Galdr Amulet Fragment and a Writ of Sealing. The Amulet Fragment increases my magicka by 30 points. Opening the Writ of Sealing and reading it, it ends up starting a quest called Forbidden Legend. The writ itself reads, "Be bound here, Uric, murderer, betrayer, condemned by your crimes against realm and lord. May your name and your deeds be forgotten forever, and the charm which you bear be sealed by our ward." Forbidden Legend isn't actually tied to the College of Winterhold, so I won't be covering it in this series, but perhaps another time. As for the staff, the target takes 25 points of damage and twice as much magicka damage, so it's definitely useful against mages. Feeling ready to leave the crypt, I took this separate entrance out and came across the final few rewards: a Word of Power, Ice Form, and a boss level chest. Exiting Saarthal, I traveled back to the college and shot straight for the Archmage. I hadn't interacted with Savos Aran yet, so I really wasn't sure what to expect. Let's just say, the rumors about him appear to be true.
You are relatively new here, are you not? I have noticed you, but we have not spoken. Then allow me to introduce myself. I am Savos Aran, Archmage of the College of Winterhold. I am quite content to see nearly any aspect of magic explored and investigated here. But I do not and will not approve of any research or experiments that cause purposeful harm to your fellow members of the college. Are we clear? Please don't tell me that another one of the apprentices has been incinerated. I have enough to deal with right now. I see. I trust that Tolfdir will provide a more specific explanation. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Tolfdir normally looks after your little group, yes? Since he's apparently occupied, and I will need to see this discovery for myself, I think perhaps you should begin researching the subject. Speak with Urag in the Arcanium. See if he's aware of anything that matches your discovery. And good work. The next time you find yourself exploring Nordic ruins, perhaps this will be helpful.
Before leaving, I was curious if Aran knew anything about the Psijic Order.
Personally? No, not I. One of their number used to advise the Archmage when I was but an apprentice here. But that was a great many years ago, before all the members of the Order were called back to the Isle of Artaeum, and it disappeared entirely.
As a reward, Savos gifts me the Staff of Magnus, which creates a ball of light that lasts for 60 seconds. With that, thus ends the quest under Saarthal. Where to even begin? Since I'm not even sure what exactly it was that we found down there, how do I even start to research it? Well, thankfully, the Arcanium's keeper, Urag Groshub, is really good at his job. What he's not good at, though, is socializing.
You are now in the Arcanium, of which I am in charge. It might as well be my own little plane of oblivion. Disrupt my Arcanium, and I will have you torn apart by angry Atronachs. Now, do you require assistance? I know what you want. Word travels fast around here. Discovered some big mystery, huh? Well, you don't even need to ask. No, I don't have anything for you. Not anymore, anyway. I said not anymore. Orthorn stole a number of books when he ran off to Felglow Keep to join those summoners. Some kind of peace offering. I think one of those volumes may have had some relevant information. If you want them, you'll have to talk to Orthorn. Not enough to bother with. Archmage Aaron's approach to these things is just to let them sort themselves out. Although now it looks like you'll be doing the sorting. Good luck with that. He was an apprentice here at the college. Not very skilled, but got involved with a group of mages who took a liking to him. When they left, he took off after them. Stole supplies and books from the college. I suppose as a way to ingratiate himself. Let's just call it a difference of opinion with the college. They were interested in research that goes outside the bounds of what the college allows, so they were persuaded to leave.
It wouldn't be an Elder Scrolls quest without some kind of hurdle. As it stands, I need to recover 3 missing books. What they are, though, is unknown right now. On my way out, I decided to mingle with a couple more of my peers. Really, nothing relevant came from their dialogue. However, by the door was my old friend, Unkano, and he was waiting for me.
You there. I have questions for you. You were in Saarthal, yes? It has come to my attention that something was found there. I know full well that you have. Please do not insult my intelligence. Tolfdir is still there now, is he? I shall expect a full report when he returns. It is my job to know these things. My role as advisor to the Archmage is aided by knowing everything that transpires here. Thank you for your help. You may go now.
Trying to get more out of the Thalmor agent, the topic of the discovery never comes back up. Well, I suppose it's true that he has some right to know of our findings. Why he's only interested in this discovery is unclear though. In any case, Unkano's desires aren't my problem right now. Felglow Keep is located a ways southwest of Winterhold. The fort is fairly close to the Dwemer ruins of Erkenthand. Riding over, while dangerous, was a bit of a breeze. Talk about random encounters. As for this journey, I ran into a man named Balbus. Balbus was a little less violent than the old orc. He told me he was just out here picking herbs for the gourmet, and that's when I took my leave. From there, I was finally on to Felglow Keep. The exterior was guarded by a few mages and a flame atronach. Honestly, these arcane duels were actually a lot of fun. Elemental blasts were flying all over the place, and strafing was imperative for getting out of the way. I think ultimately what made it fun is that it's more engaging than melee combat. It's more mindful, and you have to actually focus on what's happening. When the outside was all clear, I made my way into the Keep's dungeon. Of course, the dungeon itself was crawling with mages, or rather, summoners. They ranged from novice to apprentice, and their specialties varied across the 3 elements. What's intriguing about Felglow is that as the crawl went on, I would catch glimpses of the summoners' lifestyles and routines. The first mage had pet frostbite spiders. What for? I'm not sure. Possibly to harvest their poison, or perhaps it really was for the companionship. Next, there was a chamber guarded by a conjurer. Said chamber held a handful of cells, and locked behind them were vampires. At first, I wasn't sure why, and the vamps weren't in the mood to talk much. Taking the risk, I prepared myself and freed them from their confines. To my surprise, they ended up joining forces and started a small rebellion. Unfortunately, their efforts were cut short. They managed to take out 1 or 2 of the summoners, but they all fell by the 3rd one. In the next room, I discovered why they were being held. The place was littered with the corpses of master vampires, as well as blood and bones. It was clear that the mages were harvesting them for their dust, and to be honest, I didn't really feel that strongly about it. A good vampire is a dead one. The next room over is where the events really started to unfold. I took on an apprentice ice mage, as well as a couple of wolves. Once they were defeated, I heard pleas for help coming from one of the cages.
You have to let me out. They're going to do something awful to me. There's a lever, right there in the center. Hurry, before more of them show up. Don't leave me here. Yes, yes. Did Archmage Arin send you? He sent you to rescue me, didn't he? What? The book? Oh. Oh dear. I shouldn't have taken them, I know. It was stupid. I was stupid. It won't happen again. Help me get out of here, and I'll help you find them. Please. They threw me in here until they were ready to use me in one of their experiments. This wasn't supposed to happen. I thought they wanted my help, not to use me as a test subject. I don't have them anymore. She took them. The caller. She's the one who put me in here. Please, let me out of here.
So it looks like Orthorn's master plan didn't go over so well. He could be lying, but if that were the case, why would he trap himself inside of a cage? Choosing to believe him, but keeping my guard up, I pulled the lever and released the elf from his cell.
Thank you, thank you. I promise I'll help. And then I'll go back to the college and I'll beg them to let me back in. Yes, of course. I said I'd tell you, didn't I? The caller will have them. She was most interested in one of the volumes. Although not interested enough to keep me from being locked up. Oh, you've saved me. Thank you so much. Who knows what they'd have done to me if you hadn't come along? I promise I'll help you get out of here.
From here, Orthorn became a follower, and to be honest, he was incredibly helpful. The next area we went to served as some sort of training ground. 3 mages were practicing their destruction spells, and a 4th was overseeing everything. Together, Orthorn and I summoned our flame atronachs. We let them be the meat shields, so to speak. They blocked most of their attacks, and they dished out some powerful fire magic. Up next was a chamber full of necromancers. They had rows of coffins, bodies, and skeletons lined up on the walls. While Urag never got into what those differences were with the summoners, I think I can now piece it together. This group uses inhumane means to achieve their goals. Capturing and torturing vampires, grave robbing, snatching the dead, it certainly walks the line. As Orthorn and I continued onward, the threats never let up. Necromancers, conjurers, and mages alike were at every turn. We fought through atronachs and familiars as well. Soon, Orthorn informed me that we were getting close to the library. That's where we would find the books, but that's also where the caller was. Just outside of her room, we took care of her guards and readied ourselves for what lay ahead. Ascending the steps, Orthorn and I entered the Felglow Keep ritual chamber.
So you're the one who barged into my home and laid waste to my projects. How nice to meet you. Names no longer matter. You may refer to me as the Caller. Now, do you have a reason for making such a mess? So you're just one of Arin's lackeys. That's disappointing. You show real promise. You come here, kill my assistants, disrupt my work. You've annoyed me, so I don't think I'll be giving you anything. An arrangement, after you've destroyed so much. Fine, leave me the elf. You may go with your books.
Wait, what?
He gets the books, I get you. It's very simple.
But why?
This little adventure of yours has cost me a number of test subjects. I need more, and you'll do nicely.
You wouldn't do that, would you? You wouldn't leave me here with her?
I'm waiting.
It was really tempting to leave Orthorn behind. In the eyes of the college, he was a traitor. What's more, this seems like such an easy out. I could grab the books and be off in no time. However, Orthorn is the reason I got this far, and the caller seems like a truly heinous person. So I took this brief grace period as an opportunity to get a cheap shot off. My first attacks on the caller did heaps of damage, which was an amazing start. After that though, the real challenge had begun. Several flame atronachs came to her beck and call. The caller herself was able to let off incredibly powerful spells that shred through my health. After a couple of moments, the elf would teleport away and appear somewhere else in the room, disrupting my attack flow. Luckily, my shock damage was able to do its part, and eventually, the caller was all out of magic. The only thing she could do now was hurl her fists at me. When that happened, I was able to close in for the kill. With the summoners eradicated, I was able to grab the keep's key off of their leader's body, and I was able to grab the books. The 3 stolen texts were quite interesting. One of them was the Night of Tears, another was called Fragment on Artaeum, and the third one was called The Last King of the Aelids. From here, I was finally free to leave Felglow, but before doing so, Orthorn wanted to have a brief chat.
Well, everything worked out nicely, didn't it? Yes, you certainly do. You'll be going back to the college then. I think perhaps I'll wait a bit before venturing there myself. Let this whole thing blow over, you know. Give certain parties a chance to forget what I may have done. Still, you've got me out of that cage, and I won't forget it. Thank you again, and good luck to you.
You know, that's probably not the worst plan in the world, and trust me, Orthorn's full of those. Urag would probably never forgive the guy, but maybe Arin and Irvine might, so it's best for him to hold out hope. In the connecting room, I looted the shelves in the boss level chest. With full pockets, I ventured back out into Skyrim and traveled to the college. Apparently, a lot had transpired since I went looking for the books. Heading into the Hall of the Elements, the magical orb was apparently moved from Saarthal over to the college. How that was done, I have no clue. That thing wasn't fitting through any of the doorways. Tolfdir was overlooking it. Good to see that he's still well. Now, before returning the books to Urag, I decided to read them for myself. A spoiler, the librarian takes them away from the Dragonborn. They were excellent reads though, and do shed light on some of this questline's mysteries and plotlines. First, I started with Night of Tears. The book goes as follows. Saarthal holds a prominent place in Skyrim history, even if most do not remember it by name. It is of course the site of one of the first major Nord settlements, one of the first cities of men in Skyrim, and the earliest known capital of their civilization. It was also the site of terrible bloodshed, when the elves attempted to drive the Nords out of Skyrim, to succeed only in incurring their wrath in the form of Ysgramor and his fabled 500 companions, who swept the elves from Skyrim and firmly established it as the home of the Nords. All this is known, but little else. What happened on that Night of Tears, when Saarthal was razed to the ground? What provoked the elves to such a deliberate, vicious attack, and what prompted such a severe response from the Nords? Vingalmo's treatise on the Altmer Antecedent suggests that the elves of the Merethic era, along with their counterparts, the early Dwemer, possessed a degree of sophistication unparalleled in Tamriel. They displayed power beyond what could be expected of the time. While a distinct explanation is not given for this, I believe that this work, compared with the early writings of Hesef Tyrannus, suggests that something greater was at work on that night in Saarthal. The true motives behind the Night of Tears have been obscured to us by the passage of time, but I believe this was not a simple war of territory or of control in Skyrim. I believe that what happened was a significant event based around something very particular. The Nords found something when they built their city, buried deep in the ground. They attempted to keep it buried, but the elves learned of it and coveted it for themselves. Thus, they assaulted Saarthal, their goal not to drive the Nords out, but to secure this power for themselves. I believe Ysgramor knew something of what the elves would find under Saarthal, and rallied together his people to keep the elves from gaining it. When Nords once again controlled Skyrim, this power was buried deep below the earth and sealed away. Time has kept this knowledge from us, but it is my hope that time will also reveal the truth of these words. Every effort will be made to relocate Saarthal and find that which has been lost to us. Up next, I read The Last King of the Aelids. It reads, The Aelids, or Heartland High Elves, ruled Cyrodiil in the long ages of myth before the beginning of recorded history. One of the earliest recorded dates, in fact, is the fall of White Gold Tower in the First Era year 243, which is commonly assumed to mark the end of the Aelids. Although Aeliad rule over all of Cyrodiil was indeed broken in the First Era year 243, this was only one of the most obvious stages near the end of a long decline. The first 2 centuries of the First Era saw increasing strife between the great Aeliad lords of Cyrodiil. Alesia appears to have taken advantage of a period of civil war to launch her uprising. Imperial historians have traditionally attributed her victory to intervention from Skyrim, but it appears that she had at least as much help from rebel Aeliad lords during the siege of White Gold Tower. The popular image of the Aelids as brutal slave masters is based in fact, of course, but it is less well known that a number of Aelid princes continued to rule parts of Cyrodiil after 263, as vassals of the new Empress of Cyrodiil. This suggests either that Aelid rule was not universally detested, or that Alesia and her successors were more pragmatic than is traditionally believed, or perhaps some of both. In any event, excavations at a number of Aelid sites show continued occupation and even expansion during the so-called Late Aelid period, First Era 243 to 498. At first, many Aelid lords continued to rule as vassals of the new human regime. In some cases, Aelid supporters of Alesia were even rewarded with new lands taken from slain enemies. It is not clear to what extent human slavery continued under the Cyrodiilic Empire. Humans continued to dwell in the Aelid-ruled areas of Cyrodiil, but there's nothing definitive to show under what terms. This was an uneasy relationship from the beginning, and was not destined to last long. Resentment at the continued presence of Aelid nobles within the empire was a contributing factor to the rise of the so-called Alesian Order, founded by Maruk. The first victims of the Alesians were the Aelids of Cyrodiil. In the early 300s, the surviving Aelid communities in human-ruled areas were obliterated one by one, the refugees temporarily swelling the power of the remaining Aelid lordships. Then, in 361, the Alesians gained control of the empire and enforced the Alesian doctrines throughout its domain. The Aelid lordships were abolished. Enforcement of this decree does not appear to have required much direct violence. It seems that by this point, the balance of power was so overwhelmingly against them, and their fate so long foreshadowed, that most of the remaining Aelids simply left Cyrodiil, eventually being absorbed into the elven populations of Valenwood and High Rock. Indeed, the rise of the Durrani hegemony may be linked to this exodus of Aelids from Cyrodiil, a connection so far little studied by historians. Still, a remnant of the Aelid population seems to have survived the rule of the Alesians, because we hear of the last king of the Aelids joining the Battle of Glenumbra Moors, where the Durranis decisively defeated the Alesians in 482. How this king's people survived the preceding century is unknown. We do not even know who they were, although recent research points to Ninalata as the possible resting place of the last king. Unfortunately, in the current state of the empire, funds are no longer available for proper scientific investigation of such extensive ruins. So, the answer to these questions will have to be left to future generations. Then lastly, there's Fragment on Artaeum. It goes, the Isle of Artaeum is the third largest island in the Somerset archipelago, located south of the Moradhanan village of Potenza and west of the mainland village of Runcabe. It is best known for being home to the Sigic Order, perhaps the oldest monastic group in Tamriel. The earliest written record of Sigics is from the 20th year of the First Era and tells the tale of the renowned Breton sage and author Verney traveling to the Isle of Artaeum to meet with Acasis, the right master of the Sigics. Even then, the Sigics were the counselors of kings and proponents of the Elder Way, taught to them by the original race that inhabited Tamriel. The Elder Way is a philosophy of meditation and study set to bind the forces of nature to the individual will. It differs from Magicka in origin, but the effects are much the same. That said, it is perhaps more than coincidence that the Isle of Artaeum literally vanished from the shores of Somerset at the beginning of the Second Era at about the time of the founding of the Mages Guild in Tamriel. Various historians and scholars have published theories about this, but perhaps none but Acasis and his own could shed light on the matter. 500 years passed and Artaeum returned. The Sigics on the isle consisted of persons, mostly elves, who had disappeared and were presumed dead in the Second Era. They could not, or would not, offer any explanation for Artaeum's whereabouts during that time, or the fate of Acasis and the original council of Artaeum. Currently, the Sigics are led by the lore master, Solaris, who has presided over the Council of Artaeum for the last 250 years. The council's influence in Tamriel politics is tidal. The kings of Somerset, particularly those of Moradhanan, have sought the Sigics' opinion. Emperor Uriel V was much influenced by the council in the early, most glorious parts of his reign, before his disastrous attack on Akavir. It has even been suggested that the fleet of King Orgrim of Piandonia was destroyed by a joint effort of Emperor Antiochus and the Sigic Order. The last four emperors, Uriel V, Morahatha, Pelagius IV, and Uriel VII, have been suspicious of the Sigics enough to refuse ambassadors from the Isle of Artaeum within the imperial city. The Isle of Artaeum is difficult to chart geographically. It is said that it shifts continuously either at random or by decree of the council. Visitors to the island are so rare as to be almost unheard of. Anyone desirous of meeting with the Psijic may find contacts in Patanza and Runcabe, as well as many of the kingdoms of Somerset. Were it most accessible, Artaeum would be a favorite destination for travelers. I have been to the Isle once and still dream of its idyllic orchards and clear pastures, its still and silent lagoons, its misty woodlands, and the unique Psijic architecture that seems to be as natural as its surroundings, as well as wondrous in its own right. The Sephora Tower in particular I would study, for it is a relic from a civilization that predates the High Elves by several hundred years and is still used in certain rites by the Psijics. Perhaps one day I might return. Note, the author is currently on the Isle of Artaeum by gracious consent of Master Sargenius of the Council of Artaeum. Like I said, these are all fascinating reads, and they help to shed some light on a couple of the plot points for this faction story. There is, however, one book that stands out from the three as the most important. Even Urag Groshub can see it too.
Well, well, and you seem to be in one piece. Thank you. I'll look these over and inform Mirabelle if I find anything relevant. Night of Tears, eh? I remember this one. Well, isn't that interesting? Did you read it yourself? If I recall it correctly, that has some interesting implications. You should mention that to Toldir. And here. I suppose you've earned these.
As a reward, Urag hands the player 6 different skill books. They affect alteration, restoration, illusion, enchanting, conjuration, and destruction. With that, thus ends the quest, hitting the books. As to what happens now, well, it's time to learn what this magical orb really is. Going back into the Hall of the Elements, it was finally time to see this magical object up close and personal. It appears as though the college has been able to contain it to the central well in the hall. While good for research, it is quite questionable. We still don't know what it is or how it's used. Maybe something else is controlling it, or maybe it has a mind of its own. It could be extremely dangerous for all we know. As per Urag's suggestion, I approached Tolfdir and caught up with him.
Did he now? Does he have information about our wonderful discovery? Is that the one about something buried beneath Saarthal? Something that men and Mare fought over? I'll have to make a point of rereading it. I don't recall the details. I just can't seem to tear myself away. Whatever this is, its beauty is like nothing I've ever seen before. If you'd allow me to indulge myself for a moment, I thought I might make a few observations. I'm sure you've already noticed the markings. They're quite unlike anything we've seen before. Aliad, Dwemer, Daedric, not even Falmer. None of them are a match. Quite curious indeed. Now, I'm not sure that you're quite as attuned as I am, given my extensive years of experience, but can you feel that? This marvelous object, it practically radiates magicka, and yet it's unlike anything I've felt before. Archmage Aaron is already hard at work, and hopefully he'll get more information soon.
I'm afraid I must intrude. It is urgent that I speak with your associate immediately.
This is most inappropriate. We're involved in serious research here.
Yes, I've no doubt of its gravity. This, however, is a matter that cannot wait.
Well, I'm quite sure I've never been interrupted like this before. The audacity. I suppose we'll continue this at some later time, when we can avoid interruptions.
I need you to come with me immediately. Let's go. Really? Well, allow me to clarify the situation. I'd like to know why there's someone claiming to be from the Psijic Order here in the college. More importantly, I'd like to know why he's asking for you specifically. So we're going to go have a little chat with him and find out exactly what it is he wants. I'll be the one asking the questions. All you need to know is that the Psijic Order is a rogue organization, believing themselves to be above the law. They have clashed with the Ordinary Dominion before, and I have no intention of allowing that to happen here.
While I would have loved to have heard more from Tolfdir, I actually agree with Unkano. This is a more pressing matter. Of course, in classic Thalmor fashion, his approach was rude, but what can you expect? Before heading on up, Unkano barks more orders at me, almost as if he believes he has some authority here. As soon as the monk says his piece, Ancano wants him gone, immediately. Since the Psijic Order is extremely elusive, and it's rare to even lay eyes on them, I'm sure the college is in awe right now. It sounds as if only Savros has ever seen the Order in person, and that was a long time ago. I will say though, something about this is strange. The Order was able to telepathically communicate with me before, but now they've resorted to visiting in person. Why that is, well, maybe the monk will be able to tell me.
Please do not be alarmed. I mean you no harm. It is good to meet you in person. I'd simply like to talk to you. I've given us a chance to speak privately, but I'm afraid I can't do this for long. We must be brief. The situation here at your college is of dire importance, and attempts to contact you, as we have previously, have failed. I believe it is due to the very source of our concern. This object, the Eye of Magnus, as your people have taken to calling it. The energy coming from it has prevented us from reaching you with the visions you have already seen. The longer it remains here, the more dangerous the situation becomes. And so I have come here personally to tell you it must be dealt with. I'm afraid it's not that simple. You must understand the Psijic Order does not typically intervene directly in events. My presence here will be seen as an affront to some within the Order. As soon as we have finished, I will be leaving your college. I'm all too aware that my arrival has aroused suspicion, especially in Ancano, your Thalmor associate. Nevertheless, my order will not act directly. You must take it upon yourself to do so. As you may have learned, this object, the Eye, is immensely powerful. The world is not ready for it. If it remains here, it will be misused. Indeed, many in the Order believe it has already. Rather, something will happen soon, something that cannot be avoided. We believe that your efforts should be directed towards dealing with the aftermath, but we cannot predict what that will be. I fear I have already overstepped the bounds of my order, but I will offer this. Seek out the Augur of Dunlane here in your college. His perception may be more coherent than ours. He was once a student here at the college. Now he is something different. I presume you refer to Ancano's distaste for the Psijic Order. The Thalmor see our order as a threat because we have power, and we will not allow them to control us. I assure you that we mean you no harm. I am unsure. He is somewhere within the college. Surely one of your colleagues must know his location. I am sorry I cannot provide you with further help, but this conversation requires a great deal of effort on my part. Now, I'm afraid I must leave you. We will continue to watch over you and guide you as best we can. It is within you to succeed. Never forget that.
I'm sorry. Were you about to say
What
something?
is the meaning of this?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't understand.
Don't play coy. You asked to see a specific member of the college. Here he is. Now what is it that you want?
There's been a misunderstanding. Clearly I should not be here. I shall simply take my leave.
What? What trickery is this? You're not going anywhere until I find out what you're up to.
I am not up to anything. I apologize if I have offended you in any way.
We will see about this.
There's certainly a lot to unpack from that conversation, but first, it's pretty funny to think of these events from Ancano and Arin's perspectives. The monk asks to see me, and as soon as I show up, he waves goodbye and leaves. The other guy's reaction is pretty understandable. Now, as for what the monk says, it's still fairly cryptic, but for the most part, it sounds like whatever's about to happen is unavoidable. Apparently, the best I can do is be on damage control and clean up whatever mess is about to happen. Now, as for the task at hand, I'm to find something called the Augur of Dunlane. For the monk to say that he was once a student here and that now he's something else, what exactly am I supposed to make of that? Is he a vampire, a spirit, a lich? What's more, most of the NPCs at the college don't have the Augur as a dialogue option. As for the ones who do have it, they get irritated when I bring it up, practically as if it's a taboo topic. Fortunately, even though Arin outright dismisses the topic, he does set me on the right path. The Archmage mentions that Tolfdir loves to tell stories about the Augur. This updates my quest marker and sends me right over to the old professor.
Well now, There's a name I haven't heard in some time. My goodness, it's been years since I've spoken with him. I suppose he's still down in the Midden, but I haven't checked. Are you going to see him? Do tell him hello for me, won't you? Underneath the college. It's not the nicest place, so if you go down there, please do be careful.
Now in the moment, I forgot to ask Tolfdir for more information regarding the augur. Trust me, when you see him, you're gonna have questions too. However, this is all that he had left to say on the subject. Well, I suppose he wouldn't mind. It was all before my time, you understand. I've heard the stories, the same as anyone else. He was a brilliant student, an accomplished wizard, delved into magic in a way none had seen before. But I think he became too focused on just how much power he could acquire. That's what led to the accident. Through other quests, it is possible to learn a little more about the augur, but there's nothing that's that informative or telling. One thing that I read off of the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages that's sort of interesting is where the Dunlin part of his name comes from. In Skyrim, there's no town or city named Dunlin, at least that we know of. However, in the Elder Scrolls arena, there is a place called Dunlin Falls, and it's located in High Rock. Honestly, there's an entire rabbit hole on the augur that's really easy to fall into. So many great Elder Scrolls YouTubers have done some amazing work on theorizing his background. Due to various clues, including ones that were dug up in the game's files, it's heavily theorized that the augur was a Breton. Beyond that, I won't say much more until I finally meet him. Now, back to the matter at hand, access to the Midden can be gained via the college's Hall of Countenance. This is an area that wasn't on Mirabelle's tour. My guess is that it was likely because the devs didn't want anyone skulking around in the Midden before this quest was active. This area is like an icy version of Riften's Ratways. It's a series of underground sewers that run beneath the college. I'd be willing to bet that these tunnels were once a lot vaster. However, with Winterhold's great collapse, a lot of the access points were probably cut off. Enemies down here include ice wraiths, draugr, and skeletons. At least those were the ones that I fought with. From the Midden, I was led to a place called the Midden Dark, which for some reason actually sounds pretty terrifying to me. I think it's the mix of the Midden's ominous name, which apparently refers to rejected organic waste, with the second part, dark. Dark is the unknown. It's almost every human's bane, as it eliminates arguably our most relied on sense. Now, the Midden Dark was quite strange. There were weird symbols and totems made from human bones. Whoever made these, it certainly seems intentional, and almost like a way to either praise some entity or to ward off intruders. The Dark had several pathways to go down, and while I now sort of wish I had explored them, at the time I just stuck to the quest. Eventually, I made it to a locked door, and from the other side, I heard a chilling voice call out.
Your perseverance will only lead to disappointments. Still, you persist. Very well. You may enter.
Really quickly, I apologize for the augur's brightness.
I am that which you have been seeking. Your efforts are in vain. It has already begun. Those who have sent you have not told you what they seek, what you seek. You seek that which all who wield magic seek, knowledge. You shall find this. Knowledge will corrupt. It will destroy. It will consume. You seek meaning, shelter in knowledge. You will not find it. The Thalmor sought the same thing, and it shall lead to his end, as it has so many others. The one who calls himself Ancano. He seeks information about the Eye, but what he will find shall be quite different. His path will cross yours in time, but first you must find that which you need. You, and those aiding you, wish to know more about the Eye of Magnus. You wish to avoid the disaster of which you are not yet aware. To see through Magnus's eye without being blinded, you require his staff. Events now spiral quickly towards the inevitable center. So you must act with haste. Take this knowledge to your Archmage.
And just like that, the augur is gone. Clearly the person that he used to be is no more. Whatever the augur is now, it's far from human. Interestingly, he's able to appear through the use of the college's magical wells, so it makes you wonder if he could spawn in the Hall of the Elements or even the Hall of Attainment. However, it sounds as though he prefers to remain locked away from others, resorting to a life, if you can call it that, of isolation and reflection. I actually have my own theories on the augur that I'd love to explore in a video one day, so let me know down below if you'd possibly like to see that. In any case, he mentioned that Ancano had his own motivations with the Eye of Magnus, which probably comes to the surprise of no one. It sounds like whatever disaster awaits, he might have something to do with it. In any case, ascending back to the college, I met with Savo Sauron in the Hall of the Elements to discuss what I had learned.
Really? And what might that be? I'm sorry, what? Well, I'd certainly love to have such a powerful staff, but I'm not really sure that any of us need it. And how do you know of this? Did you really? And he specifically mentioned the Staff of Magnus? I'm impressed with your initiative. Of course, someone will need to follow up on this. I certainly do. Since you went so far as to seek out the augur for advice, I thought you'd be more enthusiastic. Something as specific and ancient as the Staff of Magnus. I'm not sure we'd ever find something like that. I seem to recall Mirabelle mentioning the staff somewhat recently. Why don't you see if she can tell you anything? I'm quite pleased with your progress, you know. You've certainly proven yourself to be more than a mere apprentice. Well done. This circlet once proved invaluable to me. I hope it can be of use to you now.
As a reward, Auron gifts me the Mage's Circlet. It's an enchanted headpiece that increases my total magicka by 50 points. That's certainly an upgrade compared to what I currently have. With that, thus ends the quest, Good Intentions. Before heading off to find Mirabelle, Ancano stopped in at the hall. I know it's one of his usual hangout spots, but after the conversation with the augur and with the Eye of Magnus being there, I couldn't help but be even more suspicious of him. Unfortunately, for the moment, there's nothing out of the ordinary that I can really do or say to him. So, leaving the space, I entered the Hall of Attainment and sought out Irvine.
Well, now that's an odd question. Why in the world would you be asking? The Eye of Magnus? I can appreciate that this thing, this orb, it's very impressive, very unique, and definitely worth studying. But let's not jump to any conclusions or assign it importance beyond what we're certain of. The augur. Just what have you gotten yourself involved in? Whatever is going on, whatever you're up to, be very careful. Well, it's said to be very powerful. Has the capacity to store an incredible amount of magical power, as the story goes. But it's more myth than anything at this point. I've no doubt that it actually exists, but no one has seen it in, what, decades? Longer? I'm not sure. The only time I've heard it mentioned was when those Synod characters showed up some months ago looking for it. Mages based out of Cyrodiil. They fancy themselves the imperial authority on magic these last few hundred years. My understanding is that all they really do is make noise in an attempt to curry favor from the Emperor. Lots of politics, little magic. I was quite surprised to find them on our doorstep. They seemed amiable enough, but their line of questioning made me uneasy. It became clear they're trying to hoard powerful artifacts, looking to consolidate power. No one here does. The Synod seemed convinced it was somewhere in Skyrim. They inquired about the ruins of Mzulft, but that's all I remember. It sounded like they were heading there, though they were rather secretive about why. I suppose if you're intent on looking for the staff, there's a chance they might be in Mzulft yet. Just don't expect them to be cooperative. I'm not really sure. Made and used by Magnus himself, if you believe those sorts of things. I believe I've heard it said that it's the only thing that could adequately contain his power. The sort of embellishment wizards of ancient times loved to make.
Well, as per usual, a new lead comes with a whole assortment of other new topics. A new adventure, Mzulft, a new powerful object, the Staff of Magnus, and a new mysterious faction, the Synod. Peering at the map, Mzulft is located in the far eastern mountains of Skyrim. Compared to the previous adventures, the ride over was fairly uneventful. A novice conjurer here, a sabercat there, nothing that a member of the college couldn't handle. Arriving on site, the Dwemer ruins were pretty quiet. In fact, without trying to sound cliche, they were a little too quiet. Typically, there's some kind of enemy guarding these kinds of exteriors. All I could really find out here though was a dead adventurer, and I'm pretty sure that his body was placed there by devs anyways. So, with fated breath, I entered Mzulft and laid eyes on the scene.
Crystal. Gone. Find Paratus. Inoculary.
This NPC's name was Gavros Plinius. A good guess was that he was part of the Synod faction. On his person, he had the key to Mzulft as well as some research logs. Reading them, they say, Attendant Gavros, the council has become aware of the lack of progress in your group's efforts. They are particularly displeased to learn that your specifications for the focusing crystal were completely incorrect. The entire Binder's Conclave has worked tirelessly, and the council is quite sure this new crystal will suit your needs. You are herewith entrusted with delivering the crystal to the site, completing your work, and delivering a full report to the council with all possible haste. The council trusts you will deliver the crystal to the oculary personally, and that there will be no further complications. Signed, First Adjunct, Orenril. Now, connecting the dots a bit here, the research log indicates that Gavros was supposed to deliver some kind of crystal. With Gavros's dying breath, he said that the crystal was gone, and that I needed to go to this aforementioned oculary and find something, or someone, named Paratus. The issue is that if this is what the front door looks like, what am I going to come across inside? Well, to put it simply, it wasn't good. Not far into the journey, I came across the corpse of another Synod. These are the people who were supposed to help with, or at least inform me on, the Staff of Magnus. If they're all dead, then what hope do I have for actually locating it? Well, there's no need for the doom and gloom just yet. The task at hand is to reach the oculary, so maybe there's some hope. Now, for the first bit of Mzulft, I was mostly facing off against Dwemer machines, spiders, and spheres. According to several sources, the automatons don't have any natural weaknesses, but they do have a variety of resistances. They're completely immune to frost and poisons. They also have a small resistance to magicka, which was just peachy for my mage. Not long into the trek, I encountered the real threat of Mzulft, a chorus hunter fledgling. Obviously, this creature alone wasn't the Synod's bane, but it painted a bigger picture of what was going on here. Like most Dwemer ruins, the Falmer, along with their chorus companions, have set up camp. By the hunter's original position, I found several more dead Synod researchers. These ones looked as though they were ambushed in their sleep. This was the part of the dungeon where the Falmer threats started to take shape, although it would take a little bit longer before they became the focal point for this quest. Up ahead was a duo of chorus, and the best I could do here was blast my fire and walk backwards through the tunnels. I don't know if any of you have looked at the chorus concept art, but boy, it's actually pretty cool. It seems as though originally, the Falmer were meant to ride the chorus reapers, practically as if they were their very own warhorses. That means that the chorus were likely meant to be even bigger than the versions we see. That's not saying a whole lot for the regular chorus, but it is saying a lot for the reapers. As the crawl continued, I faced off against more machines, relatively standard fights. Eventually, I got the common sense to summon my Flame Atronach, and the battles got a whole lot easier. My Daedra would tank the hits and lay down some good cover fire. Soon after, I came across a familiar scene, something that I had seen countless times before in other Dwemer ruins. Dead Falmer and destroyed automatons were littered on the floor. This was the indication that the threat was shifting from Dwemer constructs to the mutated snow elves. You know what though, it was certainly a welcome change. I found the Falmer easier to handle than the spiders and spheres. This was probably because they were bigger targets, making them easier to tag. I could also get the jump on them, as they would blindly roam the halls, no pun intended, and they would use ranged weapons, making it a rather trivial firefight. Sometimes I'd run into a fellow caster, and to be honest, those ones would do a number on my health. They were also smart enough to keep their aggro on me rather than to switch it to my Atronach. However, those kinds of NPCs didn't come up often, so it wasn't game-changing or anything of the sorts. Truly, the crawl through Mzulft was a long one. That was probably in part due to the types of enemies that were here, compared to say Saarthal or Felglow Keep, but I was trucking through this dungeon for quite a while. Eventually, I landed on the quote final boss of Mzulft. Entering a zone called the Aedrome, I ran into the last wave of Falmer. Taking out some foot soldiers and chorus, there was one rather bulky snow elf amongst the lot. A gloom lurker creeped out of the shadows and came in for the attack. Now, in the grand scheme of things, a gloom lurker is the second weakest of the Falmer bosses, but this abomination was able to tank my spells rather easily. At one point, things were looking pretty dire. In a last-ditch effort, I whipped out the Staff of Galderson, and let me tell you, this thing worked wonders. A couple of casts and the gloom lurker was dead. A single shot on the already weakened Falmer, and they too fell in battle. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of staves. The sole reason for that is that they don't contribute towards any skill. However, I totally understand why they're useful for just about any class, especially if your magicka isn't the greatest. I think for the time being, the staff will be in one hand and my destruction will be in the other. From here, my quest marker was locked behind one of the ruins doors. So, thinking that the key was on the gloom lurker's body, I went searching for it and ended up encountering something completely different. The Falmer actually had the focusing crystal in its inventory. This was likely the very same one that Gavros told me to retrieve and the one that was written about in the research logs. At the moment, I couldn't do anything with it, so pocketing the crystal for later, I continued my search for the key and soon came across it in a separate wing of the ruin. It was guarded by a dwarven spider guardian, which is actually the strongest variant of the Dwemer spider. However, even though it was a close fight, it was still no match for the Staff of Galderson. Collecting the key from a nearby chest, I returned to the central chamber and unlocked the door. On the other side, there was a long hallway that ended with yet another door, but this time I could hear someone behind it.
Gavros, is that you? I'd almost given up hope. Let me get the door. What the? Who are you? What are you doing here? What have you done with Gavros? It was the Falmer, wasn't it? Curse them! They've ruined everything. If Gavros is gone, there is no hope. He was supposed to return with the crystal. Without that, all our efforts are wasted. And you, if you're here for treasure or wisdom or anything, I'm afraid you've wasted your time. It didn't work the first time. I tried to tell Gavros, but he wouldn't listen. No, it won't be too cold, he said. Well, I was right, wasn't I? Focused completely wrong by the time we got here. The cold had warped it. Gavros had to cart it all the way back to Cyrodiil. Left the rest of us here to fend off the damnable Falmer. It was a brilliant idea, really. Mostly mine, though Gavros took the credit. Secret, though. Official Synod business. Can't talk about it. I am on official business of the Grand Council of the Synod. That's all you need to know. I might well ask the same of you. Running around by yourself in this dangerous place. Are you? Well, I'm afraid I can't help you with that. I need the crystal to do anything useful, and I don't have it. You found... How in the world? That's it? That's it! I don't know who you are, but you may have just saved this little project. In fact, who are you anyway? You are you? Savos wouldn't even grant us an audience when we came to you, but now you come here expecting something from me? I don't much like this, I'll tell you. But you saved my skin, so maybe I could overlook the past for now. Come on, I'll explain on the way.
So this is the aforementioned Paratus that Gavros told me to find. Through his dialogue, I got to learn more about Gavros' mission with the Synod and the role that he played in their research here. Furthermore, the room that Decimius takes me to is actually the Oculary, the space that was also mentioned from the beginning. He talks about how it's used to discern the nature of the divine and that the machine itself was designed to collect starlight. From there, it refracts the light, but to what end is still to be determined. This is where the issue with the focus crystal arose, and well, the rest is history. Reaching the top of the platform, this scene also looks very familiar. If you've run through the main questline, this appears to be similar to the Dwemer puzzle in the Tower of Mzark. It's a complex machine that has various dials that need to be turned and buttons that are to be pressed in a particular order. By the control panel, there are actually 2 spell tomes, Flames and Frostbite. This should have been a clue as to how to solve the puzzle, but for the first little bit, I was pretty dumbfounded. Placing the crystal in the center, the light was instantly refracted. I then ran to the controls and started to mess around with them. Each button turned one of the wheels that was on the ceiling. After fiddling with it enough, it became obvious that the light needed to hit the green panels. The issue was that the light rays were way off from their targets, and I wasn't sure how to adjust them. So, speaking with Paratus, he finally revealed the puzzle's secrets. He also insulted the college, but you know what? Maybe we deserve that one. The crystal reacts to flame and frost spells. Frost magic lowers the beams while fire magic raises them. The light was currently at its highest point, so casting frost magic, the crystal contracted and the light lined up perfectly with the marks on the walls. Spinning the wheels to match everything up, the secrets of Mazulft were finally revealed. However, they weren't quite what Paratus expected.
What's this? These results, they're not at all what they should be. This projection should be lit up like the night sky. Something is creating an incredible amount of interference. Something in Winterhold, it looks like. What are you playing at? Is this some attempt to stall my work? So what is it? What have you done? Did you know what we were attempting? Are you here to make sure your plan worked? That our efforts have been for nothing? Well, explain yourself. Go wrong? Go wrong? Everything is wrong. Everything. Whatever you have at that college has completely interfered with our work here. How did you do it? But it must be something you're doing. There's no other explanation. You have something at your college, don't you? Something immensely powerful, beyond anything I've anticipated. What is it? So you do have something, then. Whether this was intentional or not, it suggests some interesting results. You're looking for something, yes? The Staff of Magnus. Well, even if you are trying to ruin my work, there's still something to be learned here. I can't explain the details. That would be giving away many secrets the Synod have learned over the years. Also, I doubt you'd be able to comprehend the details. Have you seen the orrery in the Imperial City? It was the inspiration for this idea. Instead of projecting the sky, we project all of Tamriel, and then harness the latent energies to overlay the positions of... What's important is that all of this work was designed to reveal to us sources of great magical power. Purely to help safeguard the Empire, of course. And yet, in the end, only 2 locations have been revealed to us. One is your college. The other, well, that can only be Labyrinthian. So, mage from Winterhold, despite your intentions, I've beaten your little game. Even if all you've said here is lies, I know you have something in Winterhold the Synod Council will be very interested in. So fine, trudge off to Labyrinthian in search of your staff. I shall return to Cyrodiil and deliver my full report to the Council. This is not over, I assure you. Well, yes. Probably. I mean, yes. Certainly it is. But that doesn't matter now, because I know you're hoarding something even more important at your college. The Council will be informed of this. They will find out what you're up to. Am I? Am I? I think I've discovered more here than I could have hoped to. Your trickery won't confuse me.
I really wasn't sure if Paratus' threats had any weight to them. I was 50-50 on striking him down right here and now, but odds were that nothing was going to come of it. He probably won't even survive the trek back to Cyrodiil, and if he does, well, the lore will be even more interesting to think about. Yet again, the Eye of Magnus is running some kind of magical interference. First the Psijic Order, and now a Dwemer experiment. Clearly this object has power unlike almost anyone in Tamriel has seen before.
You have done well thus far, but trying times are ahead. It is imperative that you return to your college at once. You will be called on to take swift action, rise to the challenge, and discover what you are capable of. You are on the right path, and you will prevail.
Well, if that wasn't the monks saying get back to the college ASAP, then I don't know what it was. This could be the start of the catastrophe that was foretold by the Order and the Augur. If you got a good look at the map, it only showed the northern half of Tamriel, and Skyrim was lit up like a fire in the night. It was hard to see, but there were 2 dots marked in the province. One was over by the College of Winterhold, obviously being the Eye. The other was in central Skyrim though, not far from the city of Morthal. Wherever that is exactly, it likely holds the Staff of Magnus. Returning to the college, I entered the Hall of the Elements and was met with a shocking scene. This is what I'd call the climax of the faction.
Without fear of persecution.
It's like a ward, but who's casting it? On Kano? How?
I don't care what it is. I want it down now. I want to know what he's doing in there. I don't know what he's doing, but he won't get away with it. On Kano, he's in there doing something. I don't know what. We're trying to get in now. I will have his head for this, I assure you. Help take this down, will you? We're throwing everything we can at it.
Together, the three of us cast destruction spells on the barrier, and surprisingly, it begins to thin. I suppose it's the same sort of magic that Tolfdir took down when we first found it in Saarthal. Once the ward was removed, I rushed into the chamber and found Ankano shocking the orb. Clearly, he was testing the orb's limits and seeing what it was capable of.
What's going on?
Ankano, stop this at once. I command you.
Don't go near him. Are you all right? Can you walk? I need you on your feet. We're in trouble here. Ankano is doing something with that thing, the eye. We can't stop him. I haven't seen Savo since the explosion. He must have been blown clear, and he may be injured. I need you to find the Archmage, and I need you to do it quickly. Get moving. I'll be fine. I just need a minute to catch my breath. Find Savos.
Ankano is now face to face with the orb, locked away by his powerful ward magic that's now impassable. It was as the Augur foretold. The Thalmor would eventually reveal their true motives. With that, thus ends the quest, revealing the unseen. For the time being, Ankano is rather passive behind his little force field. However, whatever he did before was enough to cause shockwaves throughout all of Winterhold. Exiting the hall, there was a lot of commotion coming from the courtyard.
What's happened? Are you all right, Easter? What happened in there? By the Nine, is he responsible for this? The Archmage? Dead? There's more. Something's happened to Winterhold. It must be whatever Ankano did. You need to get out there and make sure it's safe. Quickly now, quickly. I'll find Mirabelle and see if we can't put a stop to this.
As Tolfdir runs into the hall, I get a good look at what Ankano's done. Archmage Savosaran is lying lifeless in the snow. The leader of the college has been murdered by the Thalmor. If only there was some way to convey this to NPCs like Ulfric Stormcloak or even General Tullius. I bet Skyrim's politics would have been very different. Running over to the bridge, I caught up with Feralda and Arniel, who already had eyes on Winterhold's situation.
What's going on? What happened in there? It may be in danger? Take a look. I don't think there's much question. Let's get down there. We have to do something. Come on, Arniel. Let's go.
Do we have to? They'd never lift a finger to help us.
Arniel does have a point. The Nords would sooner watch the college fall than help any of its members. However, now would be a great time to literally build that bridge with the city's people and to mend the relationship. Hauling it to the other side, I got to see what exactly we were up against. There were these wisp-like creatures, almost like ice wraiths, called magic anomalies. There were 10 of them and they were grouping up on my horse. Weaker DPS spells like Sparks and Flames didn't deal a whole lot of damage to them. Stronger spells like Firebolt and Lightning Bolt did though. The issue was that their hitboxes were so small, so they were tricky targets to hit. Furthermore, it was hard to focus my attention on only one of them. They moved rapidly, and it was hard to keep track of which ones were already weakened. While Feralda was carrying the fight, Arniel decided to whip out his fists and go brawler mode. Essentially, he did virtually no damage here, and I was struggling with my magicka regen. What's more, my horse would eventually kick the bucket, as it got overwhelmed by the anomalies. Needless to say, this battle took way longer than it should have. Maybe because it was nighttime, or maybe it was part of the script, but the townsfolk were nowhere to be found. It really was just the 4 of us putting in the work here. It makes sense too, as this was a mess caused by the college, so we should be the ones to clean it up. Slowly, one by one, the anomalies died off. Soon there were just 2 remaining, and then we got down to the final one. After the threats were eliminated, Feralda told me to return to the college. The 2 of them were going to stay in town just in case more anomalies showed up. Booking it back to the institution, I entered the Hall of the Elements, and it appeared as though nothing had changed, which was good, but also bad. Irvine was still on the ground and wounded.
Well, is everything out there all right? Wish I could say the same for us. Tolfdir and I can try and keep this contained. You need to get your hands on the Staff of Magnus, now. You were told to find it, weren't you? If the stories about the Staff are true, if it really can absorb a tremendous amount of power, maybe we can break through on Kano's magic. What? Are you sure? The Staff is there. That can't be a coincidence. The Archmage. He gave me something just a little while ago. He told me it was from Labyrinthian and that I would know what to do with it when the time came. I think he meant this for you then. I'm not sure why, but there was something very personal about it for him. I think you should take this amulet. It belonged to Savos, but I think it would do you the most good now. Take it and get out of here. Bring back that staff before Ankano brings the whole college down around us.
As the conversation closes out, Mirabelle hands me something called a Torque of Labyrinthian, as well as Savos Aran's amulet. As of right now, the Torque has no use. However, the amulet is certainly an upgrade. It increases my total magicka by 50 points. It would seem as though now the Psijic Order's prophecy is coming true. Disastrous events have taken place, and all I can do is pick up the pieces and move forward. I just have to hope that the Staff of Magnus is actually in Labyrinthian and that it has the power to stop Ankano. However, what awaits me in this upcoming dungeon is a threat that's way more dangerous than anything I've faced thus far. Considering this is the big moment for the questline, I figured it was best to go to Labyrinthian prepared. Potions, gear, spells, the whole works. In terms of gear, I tried switching some of my increased base magicka enchantments to magicka regen ones. That was one of my biggest issues for combat, draining my magicka too quickly and then not being able to close out fights. Well, there was one little detail about magicka regen that I didn't actually know at the time, and that'd come back to bite me. A small bite, not a big one, but a bite nonetheless. As for spells, I liked my current arsenal, but I felt as though nothing was that powerful. Firebolt and Lightning Bolt were great, but I wanted something that could literally let off a big bang. With enough gold left to spend, I purchased the Fireball Tome and was now ready to obliterate my upcoming foes. Sort of. Again, as a newbie to magic, there were a couple of things that I didn't know / consider at the time. You'll see what I'm talking about. Traveling to Morthal, Labyrinthian is a short distance southeast. With my horse dead, I was relying on my own 2 feet to get there. Now, as a fun little tidbit, did you know that Labyrinthian is the same dungeon from the Elder Scrolls Arena? It's where the player finds the second piece of the Staff of Chaos. I found this to be pretty neat, as a lot of the destinations from Arena were retconned in the later installments. For example, the map shows villages and towns like Oakwood, Lane Tardale, and Ambergard. There's even a major city called Falkenreth, which I assume later became Falkreath. Of course, there's a couple of 100 years in between each game, so a lot could have changed. At the end of the day, it's a fun little callback, and it shows that Labyrinthian is a warehouse for powerful magical staves. As far as the exterior goes, it was pretty quiet. There are a handful of frost trolls in the area, but depending on your approach, they can easily be avoided. Ascending the steps to the dungeon and arriving by its entrance, I spotted the spirit, or some aspect, of Savos Aran. Interacting with it, it set off a chain of events that helps to explain the Archmage's connection to this place.
Come on, we're finally here. Let's not waste any more time.
Are we truly sure this is a good idea?
We'll be back at the college before anyone even knows we're gone.
You would care about that, since you're the Archmage's favorite.
Don't forget, this whole idea was Atma's to begin with.
Let's just get inside, see what's in there.
From that interaction, we can pick up that 1, Aran and those other mages are just mere students at the college, and 2, this isn't a college-sanctioned field trip, kind of like how Saarthal was. Approaching the ceremonial door and interacting with it, I place the torque into the empty slot and gain entrance to the ancient keep. This is a place where my valor would get tested and where I'd learn the truth about Savos Aran. The first chamber contained a whole bunch of inanimate skeletons, inanimate being the key word there. After checking things out for a bit, another vision of Aran popped up.
I can't believe we're doing this.
Can you imagine the looks on their faces when we come back?
You keep talking like you're sure we'll find something useful in here.
Given the history of this place, it's more than likely there's still some amount of power here.
Enchanted weapons, tomes of ancient knowledge, Shalador's secrets themselves. Who knows what we could find?
And what if there are things guarding this place?
Against 6 college-trained mages? I think we'll be fine.
From that flashback, it's clear that the group has no idea what's in store for them. They're young, overconfident, and naive. It also sounds like they don't know about the Staff of Magnus, so maybe that plays a role in things to come. The next chamber of Labyrinthian was pretty interesting. It was a huge open area that contained a contingent of skeletons. All of them were waiting for me to step through the gate and come to their side. There was even a bone dragon in there that was setting up for the surprise attack, and it definitely caught me off guard. This is where I finally noticed that magicka regenerates slower while in combat. I've always had a sneaking suspicion that that was the case. I probably even made that realization a while ago too, but this is where it really showed its true colors. Even with some enchanted gear based around magicka regen, it felt like it barely made a difference. I suppose the trade-off for more spells fired off at once is the ability to, shall we say, reload faster. With my bar drained, I was able to let off a spell quicker than before. It still felt like a fairly even trade though. Maybe it's best to use magicka regen when you have a lot of powerful enchantments for it, as otherwise, stockpiling total magicka might be the way to go. I don't know, food for thought. After defeating the dragon, I wandered further into the dungeon and walked in on another vision.
We barely made it out alive.
What was that thing?
You want to go back in?
It's too late. There isn't enough of him left to go back in after.
Gods, what have we done?
We can't go back. Might as well go forward. We can still do this.
Savos is right. We can make it if we just stay alert.
At this point, Auron's company is starting to realize what exactly it is that they've gotten themselves into, and its members are starting to pay the price. In front of them is an etched tablet, and it reads, "Hail all, brave city, Brahmyanar, forever these walls shall stand. May enemies see her majesty, may all quake to behold her." I found this little addition to be pretty neat. It tells the player that this is more than just Labyrinthian. It's the ancient Nordic city of Brahmyanar, akin to a place like Saarthal. Heading into the next zone, the chasm, I finally got a feel for the dungeon's true threat. Without trying to spoil anything, that voice, is not only menacing, but whenever it speaks, it completely saps my character's magicka. What's more, it tends to speak when I'm about to face off against an enemy. So, remember my whole rant about magicka regen just a few moments ago? I feel like I can definitely circle back to that one. While thus far the threat has already been undead, the main enemy typing switches from skeletons to Draugr. Most of them were powerful Draugr too, with wights being the most commonly encountered variation. Depending on which weapons they use though, as well as the battlefield itself, their attacks were somewhat easy to anticipate and to evade, making the fights a little easier. Not far into the chasm, there's a small side room that contains an enchanting table as well as an alchemy table. While it might shed light on the ancient Nords' opinions and uses of magic, it's most likely meant to provide the player with some temporary relief.
You do not answer. Must I use this guttural language of yours?
Eventually, this booming voice switches from the dragon language to the common tongue, making it easier for the player to understand it. What it is and what it wants though are still unknown. Now, to be transparent, this crawl took me a while to do. This was for a few reasons. I ended up dying a handful of times. After all, there are other enemies down here too, and I had to be more conservative with my magic. Remember before how I mentioned that Fireball was going to come in handy? Well, it did do a lot of damage to my opponents, but for DPS purposes, most of the time it wasn't practical to use.
Have you returned, Armin, my old friend?
The next part of Labyrinthian is called Thoroughfare. This was by far my favorite part of Brahmyanar. The first section was brief, and it involved delving through ancient Nordic sewers while killing off a few stragglers.
Do you seek to finish that which you could not?
While we obviously don't have the full story, it's not too difficult to piece things together. During their expedition, Aaron and co had a run-in with whatever this being is. Clearly, Saarthal survived, but at this point, it's hard to say the same thing for all the others.
You only face failure once more.
Soon, the sewer turns into something of a great hall. The enemy typing also starts to diversify. It expands from mere Draugr and skeletons to trolls, wisps, and wisp mothers.
You are not Aaron, are you? Has he sent you in his place?
I actually have a somewhat embarrassing confession to make. Add this one to the ongoing list, I guess. I don't think I've ever actually encountered a wisp mother before. I really don't remember ever fighting one. Maybe I fought against one a long time ago when the game first came out and I was knee-deep in Skyrim, but I genuinely can't remember the last time I saw one of these things. They actually have some pretty interesting lore surrounding them. There's a book called The Wisp Mother that tries to theorize what these entities are. Some groups think that they're ghostly snow elves, others think they're ancient liches from the First Era, and a few believe that they're elemental manifestations, similar to Spriggans, Ice Wraiths, and Atronachs.
Did he warn you that your rogue power would be your undoing? That it would only serve to strengthen me?
At this point, the entity is mostly hurling threats at the Dragonborn and is trying to strike a nerve. Meanwhile, Savos' crew is getting thinner and thinner.
Come on, we can't stop now. We have to keep moving.
Where's Elvely? She was right behind me.
Dead. Something grabbed her from behind. Gone before I could do anything.
You're right. This is all my fault. Should we turn around, head back?
I don't think going back is a good idea.
Going back would be the end of all of us. We keep pushing forward and we'll make it. We will!
Come on, you can make it. Let's go.
From here, the enemy typing changes again, this time to something much stranger. Spectral Draugr and even some warhounds start to appear.
Face your end.
At this point, the entity is finished speaking with the player. However, just to continue giving me the proverbial middle finger, periodically it still sends that magical gust of wind that saps up my magicka. Now, back to the Draugr. To me, these feel like the spirits of the Nords and their dogs that once guarded the halls of Brahmanar. Lore-wise, I'm not exactly sure why they're spirits as opposed to being mummified bodies. It could be related to the final boss, aka this mysterious entity, or it could be an attempt by Bethesda to touch things up, so to speak. Soon after my crawl through Thoroughfare, I was on to the last section of Labyrinthian, the Tribune. For the beginning, it was more the same. Spectral Draugr, petty treasure, and more Nordic ruins. At one point, I ran into an old engraving that ended up revealing what this entity was. Several men were gathered around this central being. It was a humanoid, although it was depicted as being larger than the surrounding people. It was draped in peculiar clothing, and it appeared to have mystical properties. Perhaps the most telling thing about it was its scale-like patterns. No doubt, the final boss for this adventure is a dragon priest. In a small side room just beside the engraving, I managed to find some pretty neat gear. A honed ancient Nord greatsword of Scorching, an ancient helmet of the Unburned, and an ebony shield. Depending on the player's playstyle and current loadout, these could be great additions to the arsenal. The next room over was the calm before the storm, except I suppose it wasn't very calm, it was just a lot easier than what was to come. There was a word of power, a spectral Draugr Deathlord, and another warhound. The fight was slow, meticulous, and methodical, but nothing too challenging. Up ahead, the fun continued as I was ambushed by a Draugr Wight, a Draugr Scourge, and 2 skeletons. This encounter was actually even more challenging than the last, as they were able to summon a Frost Atronach. This fight was even slower, and a contributing factor is why this whole crawl took me a while to do. However, the Dragonborn always prevails, and before long, I saw one of the last visions set up by Savo-Saren.
We shouldn't have left her there to die.
What else could we do? Stay there and die with her? She refused to go on. We didn't have a choice.
This is it, you know. Through this door. Can you feel it?
We're not going to make it, are we?
We stay together. No matter what. Agreed?
I'll be right with you.
Agreed. We all stay together.
Up next was the final area for the Tribune. It was a great open space, and it was where the monster of Labyrinthian resided. The dragon priest, Morake, was being held at bay by two spectral wizards. This was something that initially confused me. However, it gets explained later on. As of right now, Morake is untouchable, but it works both ways. He can't escape from that magical bubble. If only it were that simple though. The dragon priest is in possession of the Staff of Magnus, so in order to get it, I need to get through him. The fight is initiated by defeating the two enthralled wizards. They aren't really much of a challenge. However, they did deplete my bars and overall just weaken me for the fight with Morake, so there was that. Once the magical seal was broken, there was a very brief grace period before the battle with the priest. I suppose this was the moment where my character could catch his proverbial breath before the real tussle had begun, aka regenerating his bars. As soon as Morake is set free, it's officially go time. Morake is one tough son of a gun. He's set at level 50, has 1,490 health points, wields the Staff of Magnus, can summon Atronachs, can turn my summons against me, and has access to a dangerous arsenal of destruction spells. I died more than a few times to him, and my head was spinning with all of the possible strategies here. However, luckily for me, Morake had more than a few weaknesses. You see, the Staff of Magnus, while necessary for this quest, isn't that good of an offensive weapon. It mostly just drains magicka. If that gets too low, then it drains health. Fortunately, my magicka regen was able to keep that from happening, so I guess there was some silver lining to my newly enchanted gear. Beyond that, Morake himself never really attacked me directly. His Storm Atronach did most of the work for him. Because of that, I was able to position myself on the high ground and completely avoided its line of sight. From there, I used the Staff of Uric Galderson on Morake, something that's not affected by my overall magicka. I did have to do a lot of recharging, as Morake did have an exceptional amount of health. However, it ended up working. Obviously, the fight was cheesy, but hey, a win's a win. As soon as Morake was defeated, I was able to take the Staff of Magnus and Morake's mask. The mask regenerates magicka 100% faster, which is incredible by my standards. As for the staff, it absorbs 20 points of magicka per second, and when the target's magicka is all out, it switches to health. Triumphant and victorious, I took my leave through the dungeon's secret exit. However, Morake's death was far from the end of Labyrinthian's twists and turns.
I'm sorry, friends. I'm so sorry. I had no choice. It was the only way to make sure that monster never escaped. I promise you, I'll never let this happen again. I'll seal this whole place away.
Well, there you have it. The truth behind Arin's expedition and his ties to this place. Those two enthralled wizards were his doing. He sacrificed his own peers not only just so he could escape, but also to ensure that Morake never left the city of Brahminar. Arin's shame was great, and his guilt was even greater. While this is of course tragic, there's still one more proverbial punch to the face.
So, you made it out of there alive. Ankano was right. You are dangerous. I'm afraid I'll have to take that staff from you now. Ankano wants it kept safe. Oh, and he wants you dead. Nothing personal. I'm afraid you do.
If there were any doubts about whether or not Ankano was acting alone, believe me, I had some, they can officially be dismissed. This was a coordinated plan from the Thalmor. Whether they knew about the Eye all along, or just took advantage of the situation is unknown. They definitely conspired against the college though. It also shows that Ankano is an even higher ranking member of the Thalmor than I initially thought. I didn't think he was some lowly foot soldier, but I also didn't think that he had that much command and authority. Once Estormo was defeated, I continued along the path and was brought to Labyrinthian's side exit. After defeating one of those pesky frost trolls I mentioned prior, it was finally time to return to the college. After all that, I finally had the staff and Ankano could be challenged. Well, fast traveling back to the institution, it appears as though things have gone from bad to worse. Ankano's ward had extended beyond the Hall of the Elements and has now reached as far as the bridge. Almost all of these story-relevant NPCs are out here with me, and approaching them, Tolfdir gives me an update.
You survived. You have it then? Let's hope it's as powerful as the Psijics believe it to be. She didn't make it. When it was clear we were going to have to fall back, she stayed behind and made sure the rest of us were all right. Look for yourself. Ancano's power is growing. We can't crack whatever magic he's using to shield himself. I hope your trip to Labyrinthian was worth it. I'll be right behind you.
It's now time to storm the college and take back what's ours. With that, thus ends the quest, the Staff of Magnus. Approaching the edge of the ward, I began to use the Staff of Magnus. Surprisingly, but unsurprisingly, it works. The barrier starts to dissolve, and then rather quickly, it completely disappears. While Feralda and Arneal take their sweet time returning to college grounds, Tolfdir and I make a break for the Hall of the Elements. It seems like Astormo was Ancano's only known accomplice, as there are no other Thalmor agents in sight. Funnily enough, it appears as though the other NPCs were stuck in the college all along, but they act really nonchalant about it. They seem rather unfazed with the whole situation. In any case, Tolfdir and I gain access to the hall, rush through the gates, and confront Ancano.
Come for me, have you? You think I don't know what you're up to? You think I can't destroy you? The power to unmake the world at my fingertips. And you think you can do anything about it? I am beyond your pathetic attempts at magic. You cannot touch me.
The staff! Use it on the eye!
Enough! Still you persist? Very well. Come then. See what I can do now.
Tolfdir becomes incapacitated, and it's a showdown between the last Dragonborn and Ancano. Ancano is placed at the same level as the player. Really, his stats aren't all that good. Where he really shines though is with his spellcasting ability. He knows high-level destruction and restoration spells, and he's also able to summon a Frost Atronach. It honestly took me a couple of tries to learn the mechanics for this battle. Essentially, while the eye is open, Ancano becomes invincible. At the same time, magic anomalies spawn from it, and they create a minor distraction for the Thalmor agent. They take his attention away from me. This is when I'm supposed to use the Staff of Magnus on the eye. As it closes, Ancano becomes vulnerable, and that's the most opportune time to strike. At one point, I was able to take cover behind a column. With the staff in one hand and the ability to conjure an Atronach in the other, I found a pretty good stride. Ancano was busy dealing with the anomalies, so while they and my Atronach were beating down on him, I focused my attention on the eye. Before long, Ancano was dead, and that was the end of the Thalmor threat. However, the High Elf had ended up creating an even more dangerous problem. Tolfdir snapped out of his paralysis, and after the anomalies were defeated, he made some observations about the eye.
I knew you could do it. I don't know. Ancano is gone, but whatever he's done to the eye doesn't seem to have stopped. I have no idea what to do.
Out of nowhere, Quaranir from the Sijic Order spawns in.
We knew you would succeed. Your victory here justifies our belief in you. You have proven yourself more than worthy to guide the College of Winterhold. A great many things obscured to you are quite clear to us. We have long believed you would prevail. The eye has grown unstable. It cannot remain here, or else it may destroy your college and this world. It must be secured. Ancano's actions prove that the world is not ready for such a thing. We shall safeguard it, for now. You now have the opportunity to maintain your college and carry on with your lives. You have our gratitude, Archmage.
3 other monks from the Sijic Order spawn in, and altogether, they surround the eye. Within moments, the eye disappears, and so do the monks. As it would seem, the college has returned to normal.
You've done it! The college is safe again thanks to your work. I knew you had it in you. I dare say the Sijics are right. There's no one more deserving to be Archmage, in my opinion. Here, consider these yours, and the Archmage's quarters as well. I shall be here for advice, should you need me.
Tolfdir hands me the Archmage's key and robes. Almost as if nothing happened, life at the college resumes. The initiates go back to training, Tolfdir goes back to teaching, the other members just lounge around, and Urog's Arcanium is the same old place. It's certainly an odd feeling. Now let's talk about the rewards. For the Archmage's robes, they have a very powerful enchantment. All spells cost 15% less to cast, the wearer gains plus 50 to their magicka, and magicka regenerates 100% faster. Combine that with Morokei's mask, and the magic should be flowing back in no time. As for the Archmage's quarters, I now get access to his exclusive garden, an assortment of potions and ingredients, an alchemy table, an enchantment table, soul gems, and a couple more odds and ends. Beyond a few unique opening lines, not much has changed with my fellow NPCs. They still treat me like an equal. While I won't cover it for this series, there are 17 additional miscellaneous quests for the faction. Some are bare bones, while others are more fleshed out. 5 of those are master skill quests, the final training for alteration, conjuration, destruction, illusion, and restoration. I'll be covering all 17 of those side quests in a separate video, and you won't want to miss that one. With that, thus ends the quest, the Eye of Magnus, and that puts a wrap on the College of Winterhold storyline. To end things off, I thought I'd briefly share my thoughts on this questline. A lot of people didn't enjoy it, calling it out as one of Skyrim's weaker stories. In some aspects, I agree, but in others, I disagree. I think the key parts of the college's questline present some of the most interesting things that Skyrim has to offer. The Eye of Magnus, the Staff of Magnus, the Psijic Order, the Thalmor, and the Augur of Dunlin. We never ended up receiving closure on the Eye of Magnus, which to me only makes it even more interesting. It's never stated what exactly the Eye is. As Tolfdir mentioned, it's not Ayleid, it's not Falmer, it's not Dwemer, and it's not Daedric. It's something else entirely. The Psijic Order likely knows what that is, but they've never revealed anything telling to the player. Some fans believe that Ancano's last bit of dialogue reveals the Eye's true power. It can create, change, and destroy the world. After all, the Augur of Dunlin mentioned that the information that Ancano learns about the Eye would differ from the information that I learned. I've said my piece on the Augur already. He's an extremely fascinating character that doesn't have a lot of background information to him. I believe that there's more going on there than meets the eye, and there are a lot of context clues regarding his past. But again, that's a video for another time. In my eyes, another bonus for this questline is that it involves the Thalmor. I was always disappointed that we never got more story with Skyrim's Aldmeri Dominion. You see them in the main quest and during the Civil War, but that's about it. Real ones know that they're the real threat to Tamriel and in turn, Skyrim. It was intriguing to see them vie for power through the Eye of Magnus, and one can only wonder if this scheme played a role in their overall interest in the province of Skyrim. As for the staff itself, it's one of Tamriel's oldest artifacts. The weapon was created by the god Magnus himself, and it's been passed on, willingly and unwillingly, between each era. How Morokei ended up with it is quite a mystery actually. The last the player saw of it, the Nerevarine had it while assisting the Mages Guild in Vardenfell. That was of course over 200 years ago, but still, depending on when Savos Aran sealed Labyrinthian, which either way could not have been before the events of Arena, it could create a discrepancy. In any case, the Psijic Order is the last thing here. They are an extremely reclusive organization. Very few living members have been seen, and very few living people have seen its members. Throughout the questline, we get little breadcrumbs regarding their faction. They're powerful, secretive, rival the Thalmor, and tend to go missing a lot. How and why are pointless questions, as we probably won't receive that answer for quite some time. They seem like a good faction, although them running up cleanup crew for the Eye doesn't really mean that much. We have no clue what they're going to do with it or where they're bringing it. It's questions like these that only get me more and more curious. Also, as a bonus, you do get some really good loot from this questline. The Staff of Uric Galderson, Morokei, the Staff of Magnus, and the Archmage's robes are all very powerful. However, pretty much all of these are magic based, so if you're not playing as a caster, it's probably not for you. Now, the other side to the questline, the one where I understand people have a problem with, is its pacing. I don't mind that there's only 8 quests for the storyline. Each one felt long and fleshed out. The issue, in my opinion, is its ending. It feels rushed and almost misused. To me, everything was going so well up until the Staff of Magnus is retrieved. The story, the characters, the pacing, everything was great. I was fully invested in what was going on. However, something felt off about that final fight and the conclusion with the Psijic Order. Plus, the faction did the thing where they make you the leader just because you're some big hero. There's no vote or competency test. It feels like it was handed to me on a silver platter. Truly, this questline felt like it was lacking closure. I know that I enjoyed some of the open-ended plot points, but perhaps a slower burn at the end of the story could have been better. It goes from a slow and fleshed out production to a fast, fizzled out questline in less than one quest. Ancano's fight is short and unsatisfying. He doesn't really say anything thought-provoking. It's his last appearance, and all we get is the cliche villain monologue. It's pretty much the same for the Psijic Order too. They hit the player with the old, "we knew you could do it," and then just leave. While there were consequences from Ancano's actions, it felt like there weren't many lasting effects. The college more or less stays the same. The eye gets taken away, so there's no more story for that. The player's relationship with the Thalmor is unchanged, and nothing more comes from the events that led up to this moment. It's not right to say that it all feels like it was for nothing, because that's not true, but to me, the ending was just so unremarkable. It makes you want to dismiss everything that happened prior. The story had ended, and I was left looking around and thinking to myself, is that really it? If you watched all of Game of Thrones and had made it through the final season, that's more or less how this questline made me feel. Excellent execution for the beginning and middle, but poor execution for the end. Overall though, since it was my first time running through it, it does get some leeway in my books. However, I don't know if the same could be said for a second or third playthrough. With all of that being said, I'd love to know your thoughts on this questline down below, and until next time, keep on adventuring.